last week when we were talking about ruku'. So now when you're in ruku', we're then going to then rise up from the ruku'. So as you rise up from ruku', what's going to happen? Well, as you rise up, you say Sami Allahu liman. This is what's come to us in narration. Sami Allahu liman hamida. So what does that mean? Sami'a means to hear, right? Who hears? Allah hears. Who is Allah here? Liman, to whom? Liman, to whom? Hamidahu, praises him. That's what it means. Sami Allahu liman hamida. So what does this mean? Well, it goes to the verb sami'a, and the idea of hearing, obviously Allah is a sami, Allah is the hearer, and so that's not a problem in the divine attributes. But the idea is the past tense usage of the verb here. Sami Allahu liman hamida. Now, so the perfect case verb, or the past tense verb, obviously it has generally, the first meaning that comes to mind, what does it mean, sami'a? It means he heard. So when you use a perfect case verb as a past tense verb in Arabic, it generally means the idea that the action is complete. Okay, the action is complete. So you can translate it as God heard the one who praises him. Okay, so that's good. And we like that. I'm glad Allah is hearing what I'm saying. I don't have a deaf God I worship, mashallah. But the other one is the usage of a perfect case verb. For example, when you say Rahimu Allah, and that means God had mercy on him. But that's not what it means. It means God, oh Allah, show mercy on him. It's a type of an expectation through supplication by using a past tense verb. So one idea is that God has heard the one who has praised him. Okay? Because what have you done? You've been standing in your prayer, and you start out with your takbir, tahrimi, and then you're going to go into your dua of the opening up of the prayer, then your bismillah, and your isti'adha, seeking refuge in Allah, then you recite the Fatiha, which is hamd, other verses of the Quran, then you go to takbir, into your ruku'. In your ruku', you Subhan Rabbil Azim, and there are other supplications that we mentioned, where you are affirming Allah's uzma. So you're bringing yourself into into the second position of the first. It's actually the first position of obedience, in a sense of obeisance, where you are bringing yourself humbly and lowering yourself before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then all of a sudden but the only time you actually praised Allah so far is in the Fatiha, by the way. And then you've praised Allah, technically. Everything else has been a type of magnification. Subhana Rabbil Azim, magnification. Allahu Akbar, magnification. But now you're coming up, and you're just coming up to change position. So, this qiyam again here is almost like a transitory state. Because the prayer has a qiyam, and a ruku, and a sajda, and a jalsa, sitting. So it's like stand, bend, bring in, and then sit. So you go through this. Those are the main movements. But you have to come up from this ruku', this bending position of stilling your physical body. And of course, there was the dua of the dua. When you mentioned I mentioned that last week here. This dua of the Prophet ﷺ, what you can say. In ruku', although Allah, to you have I bowed, or have found stillness, or tranquility, and in you I have found security or faith, and in you I have submitted. Submitted what? And then he mentioned what? Khash'a, coming to you in khushu'a, coming to you in reverent fear, is my hearing, and my ears, and my mind, and my bones, and my sinew. So it's very physical. It's very, very physical. The ruku' is a very physical thing, and the dua of the ruku' are not like the dua that go of the sajda. So the dua of the ruku' are very earthy dua. They're talking about your physicality. Your physicality. And affirming your physical body from its outward organs to the frame of the body, the bones and the sinew. Understand that. And it's important because what we've got, the prayer, the salah, is a physical, non-physical activity. It's intellectual, and the mind is engaged in it. It is very physical, but at the same time, it's not physical in the sense that it's engaged on a level of discourse with God through recitation of the Quran and tadabbur and reflection on that discourse with Allah through the recitation, for example, and the things that you're saying as if you're speaking to someone intellectually. Your mind is engaged in speaking to God, while your body is engaged as it is in its Islamic state of submissive earth, submissive water, submissive elements of the body are then also coming to Allah completely. Because Allah's salvation isn't, a salvation of the soul. Allah's salvation is a holistic salvation of an individual entity. And that salvation of Allah is of the wholeness of a human being. Not just a metaphysical reality of your spiritual self. Allah's salvation is a physical, metaphysical, holistic approach towards a human being. And so you acknowledge that in ruku'. Because ruku' is transitory between qiyam and sajda. And so you bring your body in this affirmation, in this dua of ruku', and then you rise up from this affirmation in your ruku', Subhana Rabbiyal Azim, and then this dua that I mentioned, is well-known dua of the Prophet ﷺ. And then you say, Sami Allahu liman hamida. Allah, or may Allah hear the one who acknowledges Him in gratitude and praise. Or, translated, Allah has heard the one who has affirmed Him in gratitude and praise. Because then what do you say after that? Rabb hamdan kathiran tayyiban mubarakan fi. Rabbana lakal hamd. So you can see this transition of Sami Allah Muhammadah in two ways. It follows the Fatiha, which you've affirmed, and then it precedes an actual statement of praise before you go into sajda, which is then Rabbana lakal hamd minimally. O Allah, Rabbana, O our Lord, lakal hamd, to you is all praise. Which you just said already, Alhamdulillah, by the way. You've already said that already. But you say these two praises between what? Between this ruku'. And so you nestle between these two attitudes of shukr and gratitude and statements of them, Fatiha and the dua. And the Fatiha, of course, is there in what? The Fatiha is in that standing which is obligatory. So it's a wajibat or a fardiyat, an obligation within an obligation. Okay? But the ruku'ah, rising from ruku'ah, is not the same type of qiyam as the qiyam of the qiyam that you first start the prayer out with, that leads you into ruku'. And so the supplication here is not of the same legal quality because the qiyam itself is not the same legal quality, status. And so here you are then rising up and you are desiring raja. So this past tense verb, this perfect case verb, is a type of either one, an affirmation of a deed completed by Allah, or it's a desire and an expectation from Allah, which is perfectly fine. And you rise up and you say, Sami Allahu liman hamida. And you can say hamdan kathiran tayyiban mubarakan fi, which is a well-known narration from a Sahabi that he did that. Or in the hadith of the Prophet, which we all know generally to say, is Rabbana lakal hamd. So then you affirm Allah there in gratitude and praise. But your body has been affirmed in that, in ruku', because the ruku' is a very physical aspect of dealing with the body because of the dua of the Prophet, what he said in ruku'. The idea that the whole body comes to Allah outwardly, the organs, of the sense organs and the frame of the body, the bones and the sinew, all come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala submissively. And you affirm Allah in praise in that. So keep that in mind as you're moving through your prayer. And then of course, the hamdan kathiran tayyiban mubarakan fi, the well hadith of the angels that were rushing with each other to catch those words. When the Prophet turned around and said, "Who said that?" from the Sahabi who uttered these words in the congregation prayer behind the Prophet, which is a footnote. That's a proof for this hadith is a proof. The hadith about the Sahabi, uttering these words in the ritual prayer is a proof text for mainstream Sunnis, that there can be types of innovation and even in acts of worship, as long as they're in agreement with prophetic tradition and the Quran. Because the Prophet didn't teach these words to this man, and the man's prayer wasn't nullified by uttering them. The fact that the prayer wasn't nullified was the fact that the angels were competing to catch the words. Even the angels accepted this man's act. But that's another discussion on innovation in Islam and legal definition of it, etc., etc. Another burning topic out there in Islam land. And so, then you rise up, and this is what you say, and then you're going to go then, of course, with your takbir, and how you do that is, Allahu Akbar, so you're extending your takbir so your dhikr is not lost, to sajda. And, of course, sajda is that aspect of the prayer which, in a sense, is the I'm sorry, I have a cramp in my foot. So if you want to move, I've got a cramp in my foot, so it's not very comfortable. So I'm trying to release the cramp. So I got to do funky things by stretching my toes and stuff. So it must be the cold weather and me sitting in a Buddha style here. So Allah Ta'ala says in the Quran, "Wasjud waqtarib," prostrate and draw near. And so the verb there is usjud, and that just means to make sajda. So that's not a hard one to say, to understand. It's not. Waqtarib is the verb iqtaraba. And that can have the idea of be brought near. Be brought near. Because that verb in that pattern is a reflexive verb. The general meaning is reflexive. So it doesn't just mean get near, it also can mean be brought near. Waqtarib. Or make near. So what you're doing is Allah through sajda you will get near to Allah. And the hadith of the Prophet, "Aqrabu ma yakun 'abdu fahuwa sajidun," the closest a servant is to his Lord is when he's making sajda. Now, of course, this is a qurbiyat, a nearness in this realm, in this life, and I'm sure when we talk about the sajda. Well, what is the sajda? Well, the sajda is what? It's just putting your face on the ground, literally. So in the verse of Allah, "Sima'ahum fi wujuhihim min athar sujud," Allah Ta'ala says in the Quran, the signs, sima'ahum, their indications on their faces from their effects of sujood. Well, different scholars have understood what's understood from this. Well, some have said, it means that when you make sajda, it's the dirt that clings to your forehead. Have you been praying at a football game, or you go out to a picnic or something, and you're praying on the grass, and and you're all praying on the grass, and when what do? You get stuff stuck to your forehead. That can be the idea of sima'ahum. their marks of their sajda on their foreheads. That's one understanding of some of the exegesis of the Quran. This is what it means, and that's that's a sign of debasement. It's like the Prophet when telling us that the people who are excessively praised, you throw stones in their mouth or throw dust on their faces. In the Sunnah, if someone praises you too much, just throw dirt on him. The idea of that's debasing someone when you throw dirt in them. So you're debasing yourself literally. You're choosing to put your nose in the dirt, and that is a sign which is praised in the Quran. Others said it's a type of nur, in a sense of people who pray a lot. They seem to have a luminal quality. That can be very subjective. It can be facial oil. I'm just joking there. It's like, oh, he's so nurani. It's like, well, what does that mean? Like he eats biryani a lot, or he's so biryani, so he's so nurani. It's like that. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say who's nurani and who's fulmani. Who's dark and who's light these days. But that's subjective. It's easy to see dirt on someone's face. It's hard to see light at times. Others say, well, it's those people you meet who have like those brown spots on their forehead. A person's got a crooked-shaped head when a brown spot's over here. That means that it means that his skull is not perfect, or something like that. Like it's got this up here. It's like, why are you making sajda right there for? It's like, that's one sign of it. Is that people actually they're actually out there actively working in the ummah to get those things made. Making sure they're prostrating on concrete and hot days. And rubbing their faces on the ground. Because they want to have the sign of piety. Yeah, I'm serious. It's like it's like subhanallah. That's why you don't see it too much in America. Everyone's prostrating on cushiony carpets. So it takes a lot of rug burns, to get those marks on your forehead, But if you're in many Muslim countries where masajid are maybe stone floors, something like that, you might get those marks. And of course, it has to be your physiology too. The makeup of your skin complexion, your skin is physiology that might have that. So don't think that if you don't have one of those marks and you make a zillion salat every day that there's something wrong with you. You don't deceive yourself, okay? Because some people, seriously out there working to get that done, And so, in the other sense, another meaning of it is on the Yawm al-Qiyamah, you'll have these manifestations for you. So I'm just giving you a little information here about this verse here. So you have this idea that, there is an effect upon you, an athar, an imprint, an effect upon you in sajda. And I quote a hadith here from Sahih Bukhari, that just to continue this, so if we fill in this idea of sajda as we work on it, when a son of Adam recites a verse with a prostration, so when you're reciting Quran and there is a tilawatul Quran, and in the tilawah there is ayat sajda requires a sajda as per the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, Satan withdraws weeping. Iblis, he runs, he pulls away weeping, saying, the son of Adam was commanded to prostrate, so he prostrated and he acquires paradise. I was commanded to prostrate, I refused, and for me is the fire. So this hadith then, other than, we can talk about different ways in our context of discussion on the salah. One aspect of that is that it's showing us then that this gift of salah is a means to defeat Iblis, which we've already talked about before. Remember, I talk about salah having this relationship with paradise and as a command that has to be particularly prescribed while in paradise. The Prophet has to be particularly physically in paradise in order to bring from paradise where it physically is. So the Prophet is literally in paradise, in that realm of paradise, in his physical body he was born with. And he has to, in that place, he physically returns with prayer. So he goes to paradise, enters paradise, comes back from paradise, and he brings this thing which is which is a defense against, a shield against Iblis. So when you prostrate, this hadith is also then a sign of the truth of that, because the fact that Iblis then steps aside, because Iblis says then, that this person gets paradise. He gets paradise for this act. The thing from paradise takes you back to paradise. Like salmon return back to their spawning grounds. It's like the Prophet ﷺ saying, when you say kafir to someone, it goes somewhere. And if that person's not a kafir, where does it go? Comes back home. The idea of returning home, whether it's a statement of kufr towards someone, or a labeling of a takfir, a labeling of disbelief on someone, or salmon upstream to the spawning ground, or monarchs back to Canada, or back to Mexico when they've never been there before. Or your prayer will take you back to its homeland. Okay, and Iblis, this is a protection against Iblis. So, having said that then, when you are doing your sajda, then you're coming also in those 7 bones in the sajda, by the way. Okay? And it's said that there are 7 gates to hellfire. This is a discussion by ulama. And all these gates can be closed. The idea of 7. There are 7 verses to the Fatiha, for example. And each verse of the Fatiha is a means of closing one of the gates of hellfire, for example. This is brought up by Mufassirun. We've discussed that when we did tafsir of Surah Fatiha one time in the past. So this is Starbucks, but Starbucks changed their logo. They got rid of, it's like the woman now. They don't have like Starbucks. Because we all know who she is now. You don't have to, it's like, you don't need a name tag when you know the person. They took away the name tag, because we all know who she is now. But I got cocoa in there. I was saying to Rania here is that I want to get some can we order like real cocoa beans? Like cocoa beans. I want to like roast them and make real cocoa. I was watching this YouTube of this woman in Mexico doing it, and she was roasting them and grinding them, and she made this cocoa drink. I was like, what does that taste like? Yeah, so we can get coffee beans and grind them. I want to get cocoa beans. So there you go. One day we should all give you something to do today. I'll go home and see if you can find, and if you can find some, let me know, and I'll order some, and we'll make some Mayan style cocoa. We'll find out how to make it. So I don't have to make blood with it. That's like that. What's that tribe in Africa that mixes cow blood and milk? Cow blood with milk. The Maasai do that. Yeah. They're mixing it all, just coagulating it, MashaAllah. Power drink. Anyway, so, and then when you're in sajda, then what are you doing? So when you go from, look, when you're in ruku', you're saying, Subhana Rabbi al-Azim, transcendent is my Lord in His azma, and His tremendousness, right? But sajda is an act of qurba that's different than ruku'. Sabbih ismi rabbika al-aala. And Imam Qurtubi in his tafsir talks about this angel. Allah commanded this angel to fly to the footstool, the legs of the arsh, and he flew. And Allah gave this angel these tremendous wings, and he's flying for 500 years and still can't reach. So Allah then doubles the size and number of wings, and the angel flies and still can't reach the. This is a big angel too, not like mini angels, like a big angel, it's like, and so he doesn't reach, and then the angel says, Subhana Rabbil Ala, transcend, how high is my Lord, transcendent is my Lord. No, I'm not saying that right. Sabbih ismi rabbika ala. Yeah, I gotta translate. Yeah, what did you say?
Praise your Lord Most High.
Yeah, so transcendent is the name of my Lord Most High. Yeah, and so this angel, this shouts this out, and this is then, of course, the tafsir of this first ayat, Surah Ta'ala. One note on the tafsir of it, according to Qurtubi. And so what's really interesting is that the idea of this angelic manifestation of divine uliyat, the divine highness. And this is what the believer does. So the sajda, though, is like this, physically, it's the debasing state. But on the metaphysical, angelic state, it's indicative of the highest state. And so you're going down, but your downwardness, it's just like the Prophet says. What does the Prophet say? When you're walking up a hill, what do you say? Allahu Akbar. But when you're saying, when you go down, what do you say? Subhanallah. So in these ideas, in the language of descent, when you're going down, you acknowledge Allah's highness. You in a sense of His transcendence in some way. And this is important for us because we're going from ruku, Subhana Rabbil Azim, and you're going lower down, Subhana Rabbil A'la. And then in that state of when you're closest to Allah, and if we speak of Allah in some high nature, and of course I bracket that because Allah isn't up someplace. Right? So He's not up there, as some people want us to believe. You affirm this. You affirm this highness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Subhana Rabbil A'la. And so we start taking upon in this sajda, this really transcending from the pure physicality in the dua of that you can say in ruku to this other dua. For example, Subuhun Kudusun Malaikatu Waruh, Rabbu Malaikatu Waruh. Subuhun, transcendent, holy, the Lord of Michael and Jibreel. This dua you can make in sajda. So you start then speaking in your sajda in regards to drawing in that dua of the Prophet, that dhikr, this idea then of bringing yourself in a relationship with angels. And of course, in the Prophet said, I have that, I should probably get that book out here. I have my books on the floor there, but I don't have a table here. Is that, when you're in your sajda, what was in my mind? Something came to my mind. Is that the Prophet said, "Fakthur the dua." When you're in sajda, then increase in dua. He's telling us to call out to Allah in the sajda. Because this is when you're going to be in a state where you're going to get this response from Allah. Because you're doing that one thing that Iblis has acknowledged that you've done. You have listened to his call, you listened to the command. You've put yourself where Allah has affirmed that in that state of sajda, waqtarib, you have been brought near. So while you've been brought near, Allah has prepared this for you in this act, and that He has decreed that while you're in this act, you will be brought near to Allah. So what are you going to do? You're going to ask Allah something. You're going to communicate with Allah. So what is dua? Because the Prophet said, dua mukh ibadah. So the Prophet said, increase in dua because it is the quintessence of servanthood in your sajda. Okay? And while you're in this state, according to the, you call upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course you can go to Imam Nawawi's Adhkar. I may have it here with me. I may have it here. There it is. If you go to Adhkar, you're going to find a heap of things to say in sajda. Calling upon Allah. And if you need to look at those, we can maybe find those. I don't want to, belabor that right now. I'm just going to shut down. But if you need some, you can let me know, and you can go online. You can find a lot of dua in sajda to make. That's what you should be doing. After you say Subhana Rabbil A'la, Subhana Rabbil A'la, Subhana Rabbil A'la, then you should be making dua. Subuhun Qudus Rabbul Malaikati wa Ruh. You know, transcendent and holy, the Lord of the angels and of Gabriel, for example. You say these supplications and you call out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because He says, Wasjud waqtarib, prostrate and be brought near. So the prostration will bring you there. That's the divine decree, understand that. So He's brought you there, so avail yourself of the opportunity. And don't be a thief, as the Prophet spoke of. Don't be a thief of your prayer, where you don't give sajda its right. A sirka. He spoke of a person being a sadiq, a thief. And the worst thief is the one who steals from his salah. So you have to be very mindful of that. And so then, while you're there, this is the sajda in a nutshell. So you're going to come back up. And so as the prayer is basically, you're repeating cyclically through this. Cycles. Cycles are important in this religion. Earth around the sun, moon around the earth, people making tawaf around the Kaaba, and you cycle through movements of the prayer. You cycle through the seasons. We call them mawasim, right? The seasons. So we go from changes, whether they're manifested in climatic zones or rainy season versus the dry season. They're part and part of your life, part and parcel of your life. You know, your circadian rhythm, you know, when it gets dark, your body starts then to produce chemicals to put you to sleep. So we have rhythm in ourselves. And the prayer is like that. It's a cyclical event. And it reflects in that way your life. The qiyam of your life is your engagement with the world. The sajda of your prayer is your engagement with your intimacy with God. It's like a moment of, you're in a state of ihram, where you can't, you're in ihram and you're still facing the dunya. And then you go to your state of khalwa with Allah in your sajda, of your solitude with Allah. And then you have to come out of that again. So your life is that way. You go out in the world, you come back home. You're up or you're asleep. And our lives are that way. And so the prayer engages us this way. And of course, then after that, not the most important, and I shouldn't have said most there at all, is just then as the prayer finishes, then is the tashahhud, the sitting position. Now, when we start in the sitting position, the jalsa, the first thing we're taught, and we have it here in the paper, is at-tahiyatu. And at-tahiyat here is, what is at-tahiyat? At-tahiyat are types of greetings. So how do people greet people? Well, they can shake hands, they can bow. The Sahaba mentioned that what did Muad do when he came back from Syria? How did he greet the Prophet or something? He prostrated. So in the classical world, maybe not so much today, maybe not in American culture, but there are different ways you greeted people, depending on their status, or how you stood before them, and reverence and respect. And these are all types of tahiyyat. So in this, the Prophet or some taught his companions to say, at-tahiyyatu, all forms of reverent, respectful manifestations of what? Of greeting, of showing that you are meeting someone, belong to God. So you show them in prayer. You bow in prayer. You prostrate in prayer. You look down in prayer. You lower your gaze. So So you do these things, and all these things are found in the prayer. These ideas of greeting, where greeting is done, where you are acknowledging authority over you, and you're showing submissiveness in that. You find these manifested in the prayer. And so the Prophet says, At-tahiyatu lillahi. All types of greetings are only due to God. God is a true one who truly deserves to be given proper greetings. What's salawat? What are salawat? Requests, prayers, supplications. The request for barakah. Calling out to Allah. Seeking of forgiveness. The salawat of Allah on the Prophet is pouring out of him of his divine grace. For the angels, it's dua and supplication. For believers, it's either dua or it's a benediction, a request of a transmission of blessing on another person, in this case the Prophet ﷺ. Or it could be a manifestation of your own need before Allah as a servant through ritual worship. The salah has many meanings. So salawat has these multi-variant, faceted meanings to them, right? Who do they belong to? Allah. What about tayyibat? The hadith says, Inna Allah tayyib, wa la yakun tayyib. Allah is tayyib. Allah is pure and good. Allah accepts things that are pure and good. All things good are God's. So, acts of obedience, proper intentions, purity of body and of one's tongue and one's clothing, foods and things which you acknowledge God in that are illicit and good for you, halal and tayyib. These are all only Allah's. And so you're sitting with your head down before a king. You greet the king. You've walked in the sacred state of ihram. You've raised and you magnified him. Allahu Akbar. Only you are the greatest. There is nothing greater than you in all things. You acknowledge him through his word. You show yourself through posturings that you're constantly submissive. You've come to him in your most submissive state of sajda, calling out to him. You magnified him. You acknowledge his transcendence. You brought your body to that in ruku', and you brought your soul to that in sajda with your body. And now you sit there before the king in his majlis. As the hadith said, I am the companion the jalis, you sitting. You're in the majlis of Allah. Now, you greeted him in these forms of greeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the tahiyyat of praising him and of bowing to him and of prostrating as people do in the classical Oriental world. And now in this majlis of Allah you sit. You're sitting here before Allah because you've never entered into this sacred space. Okay? It's like sitting in front of the Kaaba after making tawaf and just contemplating the Kaaba or just looking at it. And then you go through these things that you're acknowledging in all this. And then you tahiyyat, wa salawat, wa tayyibat. Wow, all the good things I've been given. All these means of benedictions and prayers and ritually and formally, and whether they are verbally or through action. And how I bring myself to God, they only belong to Allah. And then you do what? You greet the one, you send benedictions on the one who is the medium for you in this. Assalamu alaikum ayyuhan nabi. Greetings upon you, O Prophet of Allah. Who is the one who's the means for all this? Allah manifested it for you. Through whom? Through Muhammad. So you acknowledge him. And of course your prayer, your salawat are taken to him. And he responds back to you. And then from there you say, Assalamu alayna wa ala salihin, and you then say, upon us we want this security, this salam. And for all of us. for all of us. So you're not niggardly in this. You manifest in your salam, in this statement, that not just for yourself, but you want others to have it. But who do you want to have it? Those people who are right with Allah. Why that? Why not just all people? Because everyone, this gift of salah is offered to everyone, right? It's there. Allah calls to the house of peace. Allahu Akbar, right? That's from the angels teaching the Sahaba through dreams this adhan, right? Here they are, and people, oh yeah, let's do that. Oh, it's time for lunch now. Oh well, let's turn the TV off a little bit. Okay, turn it back on. Right? Huh? Or you just, oh man, turn the TV up, I can't hear, the adhan's going off. Yeah. Right? The few, the proud, who listen to it, right? They make their wudu, trudge off to pray, and do that ancient ritual. They listen to the call of Allah. And so, Ibad al-Salihin, those righteous, salih people who want to be healthy, who want to be whole, who want to have sulh, who want to have goodness in their lives and wholesomeness. Peace be upon them, security for them, safety for them. You see, you co-share that in your salam. And then you get to say something wonderful. You get to say the words from paradise, written on the leaves of paradise, on the throne of Allah, of the arsh of Allah, the words of salvation, which were given you by Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which are tayyib, kalimat tayyibah, the good words. You get to say them. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. I witness that there is no God but Allah. Wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. And I witness that Muhammad is his messenger and servant. So you get to say the words which are going to put you in paradise. Now at this point, technically your prayer is over with. Okay? Just about over with. You wrap this whole thing up just about with what? With the words of salvation. But before you do that, you've got to do something else. You've got to, it's all contextualized in something. And that is the salawat on Sayyidina Muhammad والسلام, and Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi. Why that? Well, I think Imam Rabbani has a really good explanation of that, which we've talked about, but some of you guys don't know that because you don't come to those classes or those things, and so I'll explain to you. So through Ibrahim alayhi, when we give the salawat, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad kama sallayta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim, for example, you affirm, O Allah, send your salawat on Muhammad and his family as you have given it to Ibrahim and his al. Now obviously the Prophet was already included in that Ibrahim one because he's a descendant of Ibrahim alayhi, so he's already in that one. Of course, there is a larger context of what al means here, family, and it isn't Ahl Bayt per se. It's this broader context of the people of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that is of his ummah. Okay, that's the broadest understanding of it. And you ask Allah because it's through these two men, that you are given anything. It's these two men that what you are engaged in has become manifested for you. But it's through a deeper meaning here, though. The meaning of the khalla of Ibrahim and the muhabba of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that is the friendship of Ibrahim and the belovedness of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, are brought together. Because our Islam is a continuity, obviously, of this Abrahamic tradition. So we're doing Abrahamic activities, things of Ibrahim alayhi salam, but we are now engaged with them through the perfections of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when we are and acknowledge Ibrahim, for example, Inna salati wa nusuki wa mahya wa mamati, as Ibrahim ﷺ said, my life, my prayer, and my sacrifice, my life, my death are for Allah. That's an Abrahamic statement. So you are getting this in your salah. You are incorporating this into your salah as you align yourself with Sayyidina Ibrahim. Because you are then bringing yourself into his dua. Inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alameen. Which also is a part of a dua you can say as you actually enter into salah, which has come through this narration. So there's the Abrahamic dua, you can begin the prayer, and you affirm that then Ibrahim as-salam at the end of the prayer. So you bring in, first of all, the circle of divine friendship through Ibrahim, and then you bring in the center of the circle of divine belovedness through Muhammad ﷺ, and you participate in that. You see? By your bringing these two men together in friendship and belovedness, you, as a believer, are brought into that. And you co-share in that. And then as you finish the prayer, what do you say? Well, there are angels over here and there are angels over there if you're praying by yourself, and there's the angels in Jamaat, or angels in Jamaat if you're praying with Jamaat, with human beings, right? And you co-share this, but you say, Assalamu alaikum. It wasn't like, hi, how are you? It's like, hi, how are you? Assalamu alaikum, it's like that. Assalamu alaikum. On you is safety and security. You then finish the prayer, you walk out of the prayer with this salam. You leave the majlis of the prayer by affirming an angelic statement of paradise when you enter paradise as well. Assalamu alaikum. That's it, and that's the greeting of paradise. And so you're giving the expectation of the fruit of the salah at the end of the salah, which is what? The greeting of entrance into paradise. Because that's the fruit of it at the end of the day. The ultimate fruit of this is what? It is a means from paradise to paradise, and it ends with the greeting of paradise. It all wraps it up that way. And you want it not for yourself only. Look, what's the intention for Shafi'is? What? When you are Shafi and you make the salam, you have to give the salam. And you have to intend to leave the prayer when you make your salam. Yeah? And you're giving it to people to your right, and if no one's there, it's the angels. So you intentionally, for the Shafi'is, leave this majlis you're in of salah. So you can walk away. But with the promise of the angelic greeting of paradise on your right side and on your left side. These are things that we should be mindful of the salah for all of us. You know, it is a gift from Allah that you and I are not going to be able to truly appreciate until we're dead in our graves. Perhaps, inshallah, if you take it seriously in this life and you gain engagement with it, and you truly have reflection upon it, then maybe you'll get some glimpses. Allah will pour out to you glimpses of the power of what you've been given. We could talk about the fada'il of salah and the musallin, the people who pray, and we need to. We don't have that time today. Time is limited, but these are things that we need to be discussing. And you need to share these things. If there's anything good in these talks, these 2 days that we did this, you need to go share with your families these things that you're learning. Sit down with them, walk them through their prayers, talk with them, talk to your younger brothers, talk to your younger sisters, talk to your parents, share with them the beauty of the things, if they were here, that you can share with them. That's why you're here. There's no good to sit on a mountain of gold and not share it. Any questions, anything?
The tahiyyat, I've heard somewhere that it was a conversation that...
Yeah, I was doing a lot of research to confirm that. So that's why I didn't bring it up.
Okay.
I've mentioned it. A lot of Sufi discourses, you'll hear it, that is. I've not been able to confirm that. So because I can't confirm it, I'm not going to publicly on video state it. Oops. That's been recorded again. Since all of our mashayikh say that it is, it's like, I'll give you an example. Ibn Arabi, for example, said that many hadith that may be considered by jurists as being, none of that are weak or actually authentic. But those are like Ibn Arabi's kashfi understanding that there's truth in it. So I cannot deny that, there's truth probably in that. I don't question it at all. but we are sort of bound by, a principle of trying to, quote things that when someone hears something, they can say, oh, well, that's just another one of those Sufi talks, and they're always quoting that stuff, yeah, whatever, I like to think that it's a replica. It's you're engaging in this paradisial discourse. But even if you don't have that, as a narration to help to expand your understanding and appreciation for the Tahiyyat, I think some of the things we covered, though, and if you think about it, there's a lot there. Because you sort of think about the prayer. And if you just teach someone the Tahiyyat, it makes really no sense at all. Why are we doing that? Why are we saying that? Especially the first line, Tahiyyat, what's about? It's like, well, why are we saying that? Why are we saying this in the first place? Because when you start to think about it, it doesn't make much sense what we're saying it. I can understand, magnifying God or something like that. I can understand magnifying God and saying like Subhanallah, Allahu Akbar, but not Tahiyyatu lillahi wa salawatu wa tayyibat. It doesn't make much sense. You have to really think about it. So, or why do you say Subhana Rabbil A'la or Subhana Al-Azim? We're not really thinking about these things too much. So yeah, inshallah, there's truth in that. That Jibreel is Allah's. The Prophet is affirming these issues of Allah, and Allah greets the Prophet and the Prophet accepts Allah's salam and for all of his ummah, and the angels are witnessing by saying Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Yeah, that's nice. I can sort of visualize all that right now, taking place in the Imperium out there. But unfortunately, I'm restricted on that. I looked hard and low. I even remember I had asked Abdul Murad that, and he said that was the dialogue there, but he didn't cite any sources. But okay, go ahead.
The ending greeting of Salaat after we send the salutations to the people of Abraham, the family of Abraham, the family of Muhammad. What about the dua that some people say? I know it's not required, but the dua that people read after that, and I've heard different.
Yeah, there's sitting after you've given legally from different understandings, your prayer is basically over with. So since it's like a khatam, so to make these supplications are fine, they're different ones. We can look through Adhkar, and there's heaps of different ones you can make for your family, for yourself, so.
Is there one that's preferred over the other?
I don't know, I'm looking, my brain is not functioning right now. Coco is not kicking in. Let's see what we got. Is there one that you say?
I say, Rabbana, Rabbi Ja'alni Mukim Salata wa min Zuriyati, Rabbana wa taqabbal dua.
That's a very Abrahamic dua. What does it mean?
I know what it means. I've actually.
I like that. You put me on the spot. I put you on the spot.
I know it says for salvation of the parents, whether
yeah. The Independent community really emphasize that their kids learn that dua.
It's usually
to make sure that they're getting a dua for themselves. I brought you forth in the world. I'm paying for your education. I expect at least I get this dua every day, 17 times a day for me. It's like your hedge fund.
And then I've also heard you can say Rabbana atina fid dunya. That's the other one.
Allahumma inni zalamtu nafsi.
Oh, let's see what we got here. Dua and then go through some of them. Dua and ruku.
And is there any place online, or should I ask you afterwards?
You can. I think even when you go online, unless you can go. Even if it's like a Salafi website, I think you can still find. They have this dua there. It's not a problem.
Also,
yes.
I've heard between sajda, when you get up for that short period of jalsa.
Yes. I think I don't know if I've written that down or not, but I forget. I'll know it when I'm praying. I have to sort of think about it when I'm not praying, what I'm going to say. There's dua between them also. I mean, there are different ones. I'm just looking here. Oh, that's like in ruku. The Prophet, he mentions here in a hadith that when a person, before he leaves the prayer to seek refuge in Allah from the punishment of hellfire, from the punishment of the grave, from the fitna of the life and death, and from the evil of the Masih ad-Dajjal, for example. اللهم إني أعوذ بك من عذاب جهنم ومن عذاب القبر ومن فتنة المحيا والممات ومن شر فتنة المسيح الدجال. O Allah, I seek refuge in you from the punishment of Jahannam, the punishment of the grave, from the discord of the living and the dead, and from the evil of the fitna and discord of the Masih ad-Dajjal, for example. اللهم إني ظلمت نفسي ظلما كثيرا ولا يغفر الذنوب إلا أنت. Allah, I have committed a great sin against myself. Forgive me of my sins. No one forgives sins but you. Forgive me a forgiveness from you, and have mercy upon me. Warhamni innaka anta ghafur rahim. Indeed, you are forgiving, merciful. Yeah.
Is it وَإِنَّهُ لَا يَغْفِرُ الذُّنُوبَ or وَلَا يَغْفِرُ الذُّنُوبَ?
Allahumma in this narration, Allahumma inni dhalamtu nafsi dhulman kathiran wa la yaghfiru dhunuba illa ant faghfir li maghfiratan min indik warhamni innaka anta ghafur rahim. Also, Allahumma inni as'aluka jannah wa a'udhu bika min an-nar wa inni la ahsanu oh no, that's it. So that one you can say Allahumma inni as'aluka jannah wa a'udhu bika min an-nar. You can say that. That's pretty easy. Allahumma inni as'alu afwa wa afiya. Allahumma inni as'aluka huda wa tuqa wa afafa wa ghina. Allah, I ask you of guidance, I ask you of piety, I ask you of ease, I ask you of provision. So there are different dua you can make. So the ones that you have are actually mentioned here right now, but they do exist. Anyway. So, Allah will give you all tawfiq in that. So yes, you can make those dua. And but if you're praying, for example, and if you have to break your prayer for some reason, so as long as you get your final sitting and you made this intention, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad or Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, if you can at least say that amount, and then if you had to like lose your wudu or something like that, and you lost your wudu, you made the intention at the moment to exit the prayer, you can exit the prayer, and then you can continue with the salawat, but you actually left the prayer, just to let you know. Minimally, you want to get at the last sitting that Allahumma salli ala Muhammad in for the prayer's validity.
Can one say salam just after saying Allahumma salli ala Muhammad?
I mean, I can leave the prayer?
Yes.
Yeah, but technically at that time you've left the prayer. If you get that done, technically the prayer is technically over with.
So the prayer, you don't have to worry about repeating the prayer again?
No.
You say salam?
No.
It's just a supplication, right? It's additive, I guess.
No, that dua is wajib.
Well, the durood, right?
The durood is wajib, that minimum amount.
Right.
Once you said that, the prayer is over with.
Right.
Even though you're continuing. I'm just saying, it's a bit a thick caveat there that if you are in a situation where you had to leave the prayer for some reason, get to that point and then you make the intention and you can leave the prayer at that time.
With
saying Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah?
Yeah, since for some the salam is wajib, so it's better to make the salam.
Okay. So then my second question is, it's following upon the salam. Like from what I've been told since I was a child, is that or my parents have told me really, and some moms have also, that we say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah to kiraman and katibin, the two angels that sit on our shoulders. So how, and I know that you said the Shafi belief is to say salam to the people behind you, and if there's no one behind you, then
No, I already said it too. I did angels.
are the angels.
It can be any angels, not just these two. It could be any angels that are praying.
Right. So it's not specific to just these two then.
No.
And then, in the physical sense, I'm just not trying to be technical, but just for my own understanding, in the physical sense, when we say Assalamu alaikum, do we look to our shoulders or do we look behind?
Yeah, the jurors say to look towards your shoulder here. Like that, you know. That's mentioned as one of the adabs of the prayer.
Sure.
No.
No, I see people do that.
Then you look at them and they look at you like. Seriously scary. Bloodshot eyes. Yes, sir.
What's the significance of, say, when you make a mistake in your prayer and then you do the additional two sujood?
Allah wants to make sure you get a good prayer. The prayer is like, the Prophet said the prayer gets wounded. And these are ways to mend the wound. That's what the Arabic word is, jah. So it's used that in the hadith. So the prayers get wounded. So it's like a living thing. So don't spike it or cut it. And these are like healing. And also, it's because this prayer is being asked about. It has a quality to it that you want a healthy prayer. You want it to be salih. So you don't want it to be fasid, corrupt, or sick. So these, and of course, those are for wajibs, things that are wajib in the prayer. So that if you miss a wajib, or you put something out of place in the prayer, or you have too much of a pause in the prayer, or that goes into the whole fiqh of that. It's not for today. Then you give the sajda so afterwards. But in a sense, it helps to restore that which is injured in the prayer. Ameliorate. It's like a patch. Like we use that word patch a lot today. Like Islam means a patch, like an upload for the ummah. We've got a lot of viruses that have been downloaded into the ummah. And so,
in the same following up on the same question, I know and this is something again I've been told. I've never been able to verify any of this, but
I love that. It's like aliens in what was that place we were in New Mexico? Roswell. You guys drove to like Roswell? It's one of the most boring places in America. But there's so many alien things, like alien cafes and alien bars, except at Walmart. Go ahead.
So, making sajda sahoo, I don't know exactly if you have to mend the wound, do you do it after atayat, or when you said
There's
actual prayer?
For the Hanafis, as soon as you give this, you give the salam and you make the sajda, and you come back. For the Shafis, you give the whole prayer and you do it too, and then you give the salam.
And now to atayat, I know you didn't go over this in there, and I was just wondering because I've heard from different people, different aspects as to why we raise our finger. All right. Some people say.
Oh, it's we're hitting Satan.
Yes, exactly.
I'm hitting Satan. That's one. Affirming Tawheed, God is one. When do you do it? Do you say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, or is it Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah? Is it Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, and you hold it out? Till the cows come home. The jurors will never agree. So if you're Hanafi, it's Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. If you're Shafi, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. If you're Maliki, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. If you're Salafi, it's La madhabi. So, sorry, can't help on that. Imam Bayhaqi, though, he, of course he's Shafi, right? But he went through and looked at all the different opinions. He thought the Shafi position was the best because it has the hand movement, it has a movement, and it maintains. So it's like, Talfiq, it's sort of combining all the different concept positions. So, but a strict Hanafi, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, holding a ring, they hold your finger like that, Some Hanafis don't do it at all, because they say it's like excess movement in the prayer. It's abath. Yeah, they don't do it at all. That's one position for some Hanafis.
And how is that taken? Is that accepted in the Shafi?
Only for some people in the subcontinent. That was a late analysis. So, it's like it's constantly morphing. It's like a computer program.
What the intention?
Oh yeah, I intended good things when I drank that beer. You can't look at things like that. I mean, didn't intend to kill him, but we forgive you, but
There's been times when I've asked that question and it's based on my intention, and that your response is the exact same response I would.
Yes, it's this is a fiqhy question, and you can sort of like try to get root cause, but reading them all doesn't tell you anything. It's like different computer programs. You're plugging in the same variables, different programs, you get different results. So you're putting the same hadith and narratives into different programs, which are the madhabs, which are interpretive methodological approaches. Of course you'll get different answers. So it's inevitable. So, what can I say? But that's why we probably need a fiqh class, We haven't had a fiqh class, like, ever. Because no one wants to study fiqh.
It's important.
I know it's important, but no one wants to come and study it. Yeah, you bring it up, no one signs up for it, no one cares.
It'll be a class of one. I'll be there.
Yeah, you got your radio program. Don't you have a radio program today?
No. Quit it.
You quit that, why?
Because it wasn't in line with what I wanted to do.
In life? You want to be DJ?
Sheikh Naeem, I
Yes.
have a question related to the class before this one. You had mentioned that Allah's decree precedes His creation. Is there any Islamic explanation of deja vu?
Deja vu. Oh, I've gotten like a few questions over the past few months on deja vu. That's a deja vu. Wow. Deja vu. Isn't that like a group from the 70s? Deja vu, probably. Sounds like a nice name for a group, deja vu. Nice black girl. Deja vu. This is more, better, more soul to it that way, I should say. Deja vu is a nice name. Name your daughter Deja vu. No, I don't know. I can't explain deja vu. Deja vu. And I've not read anything yet in any classical discourse on deja vu. I haven't really researched it either, so maybe if you let me look into it, because I've actually had a couple people send me some emails on deja vu, and they're like, I've had this deja vu, what does it mean? I'm like, I don't know what it means. Did it happen? Yeah, it really is happening at that moment. I have them. You have them?
Yeah.
Yeah? It's like, what's going to happen, and it actually happens that way. It's like, wow, look at that. It's like...
Yeah, someone asked me that question on the date, and I was like, why? He was like, because it just happened while we were sitting there talking. So, just wondering what the Islamino is in the explanation. Unlike what's happening.
Oh, I'll look into it. I've been asked, I really haven't seriously looked into it. I'll look into it, and I will respond to that, inshallah. I will definitely. Remind me to do that, okay? You remind me. You like to remind me of stuff, so.
I asked you first,
You asked about that too?
A year ago.
You're one of those, a year ago. See, I haven't got to do it yet. If I don't get asked, if you don't persistently ask to do something, don't expect me to do it. Just tell you right now. I'm not, because there are so many things in the queue, I just get lost with these kinds of questions. So I apologize for that, but.
Sheikh, one question.
Mm.
We were discussing about the taqdeer and the qada of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there are sometimes when we can actually, is it okay to say that sometimes we can't control things but just because we don't do it, we don't get the end results of it. For example, if we didn't prepare for something, we didn't prepare for an exam, we're gonna fail it, but it was in our control. We had some time, we could do some preparations so we could pass our exam, or we could memorize some dua, but we never did. So in terms of these, is it okay to say that things are, sometimes things are in our control, yet we don't do them, or?
If you start asking what is it that makes a person do the things that they do, like what things motivate you, what things get you going, some things are not even on a level that are things that are like even intellectual or of the intellect. Anger, for example, sometimes anger is a physiological response. It's the emotive response, but its origin is something purely physiological in yourself. At that moment, for example, when you're angry, there may be nothing within you intellectually cause you to control that, because it's physiological. It's a chemical. It's a matter of a chemical reaction within your body on that level. So the point of that is, why I'm saying that, is that that's not in your control at that moment. That's not in your control. You can't physically sit here mentally unless maybe you can, if maybe you're a great yogi who has that capacity to physically, mentally control your physiology, if there are people like that really out there. Why I'm saying this, because that question you're asking like that, I think, is seeing things as you perceive things. There are some things that are not going to be in your control. They aren't be. Though they may seem like they should be in your control. Like, for example, I wanted to study for that exam. Well, why did I do it? Well, maybe the reason you didn't do it is something which is actually there, that is something actually that you've not considered why you couldn't have done it. It wasn't because you just couldn't do it or find the time. There could have been something else underlying that, a psychological thing that you're not aware of, that maybe that's your subconscious response to not doing something, is blocking it, for example. And so, there's a dua that, Allah, Allahumma arani haqaqa kama hiya, this kind of dua. Oh Allah, show me the reality of things as they are. Like, you really want to really perceive, what is it that makes you tick? What is it that makes you who you are, do the things that you do, or not do the things that you do? And I think if you're looking at it in a contemporary perspective, that there are many levels of why things are in your life the way they are. And some things really aren't in your control. They're a part of you, like if you look at your body right here, what parts of your body do you really control internally? What's going on inside there? Is that true? How it happens, you have no idea. What about, if that's the case, what about things that are part and process of your intellect, of your state of consciousness? Same thing, I think. So I think there are things there, if you see it very simplistically, I think we have to sort of step back and not really break things down on a very simplistic level, because if we do that, I think that when we will misunderstand things. I think things are a little more complicated and intertwined and intermeshed than we actually at times perceive them to be. For example, it's like trying to solve a problem in the Muslim community. It seems like it should be easy to solve. Well, why can't we solve it? Because probably it's not really such an easy thing after all. It's like trying to take a cockleburr out of your woolly dog, your Fido's hair. The idea is easy. Take out the cockleburr. But it sure ain't easy. It's so meshed in there, if you try to tease it out, you'll be teasing it out for a day. The easy thing is just to cut it out, but that creates a bigger problem. So the point is, things that are happening in your life, or things that you're doing that maybe seem out of your control, some of them probably are really out of your control at this moment. And some things probably aren't out of your control. And if, for example, let's say school or something, and you find yourself that you didn't do it, then you need to really sit down, and ask yourself, well, why did I really do this? And if you analyze it, you say, well, it was just because if I was distracted. Then you have to ask them, then why was I distracted? Is there a reason I'm feeling distracted? That may be that you're, for example, you are feeling depressed. One person has this problem in England, and England, for example, because they don't have much sunlight there, right? And one problem people have when it comes to depression, they feel bad and lows, is because they have vitamin D deficiencies. Why do they have it? Because they don't have much sunlight. So who has it a lot? Muslim women living in England. Because not only are they wearing niqab and black, they're in a cloudy environment. So it's like whammy on a whammy. So you wonder why a lot of niqab girls are depressed. A lot of it's just because they have vitamin D deficiency. Not because Islam oppressed them, it's because their bodies aren't getting a vitamin that they should be getting from light. And so, one way to just initially address that problem, instead of trying to look for the dua, or the sheikh's blessed water or whatever, you look for what? You look for something first. Like if someone comes to me with a problem, I say, well, don't look for look for the apparent first, and eliminate it if you can, and then look for the obscure. Every sound in the home isn't a jinn knocking on a pipe. It's probably just cold water. It's not a jinn, So first you eliminate the things that are physical or physiological, and then you look for the metaphysical, the transcendent, the paranormal. Does it help you a little bit? The answer? Long-winded answer? It's my way of using a lot of words to answer your question. Works well. A diversionary tactic.
We were actually discussing something similar yesterday, Omar and I.
Where?
He's denying it. That's his defense mechanism.
Sheikh, I have a kind of follow-up with that.
Uh-huh.
Taking a course in biological psychology, and kind of what you mentioned in terms of your physiological processes, how it affects your brain, or how it affects your consciousness. What is the interaction, or is there a separation from your consciousness and your ruh?
In the what?
And your soul? Where does your brain activity as a production of how you think is different and separate from your spiritual reality or your soul?
Oh, that's a hard one, isn't it? Obviously, there is a relationship between your biochemical, physiological processes in the idea, in regards to the brain as a physical organ functioning in what we would call a conscious state or a non-conscious state, and all the things that consciousness that come in that box of consciousness, what's there. But I was with Sheikh Mahmoud once, and he said that, and we were like in the car, and he was talking about the ruh, and he said, if you want to understand, the ruh is like, think of this. He said, when you're asleep, the ruh leaves your body, but your body's still functioning. Even on a brain level, there's things going on there. But full consciousness, awareness isn't there. But a type of consciousness is there. So I would say that on a level when the ruh is with the matrix of the physical brain and the physiology and biochemistry that make up that material thing, on that level, on the pure level of the physicality, there is consciousness, because not only humans but non-humans have that. Okay, so we all observe that. But he was trying to help me understand that when the ruh is there, there is a fullness of consciousness. That's a consciousness which transcends. It's like this, when you're fully conscious, you have a sense of abstraction to you. For example, how can I say that? It's like, I mean, maybe it's not the best way to explain it, but when your ruh is fully there in your body, not only is it aware, because the physiology is also they're laced together, but there is an intensity of awareness, but in a very abstract way, where you perceive things. You can perceive things outside the box, or if I want to call it like that, or let's say it was as you can observe. You can physically observe and be aware of art. But you got to be fully aware to have an experience or understanding of what you're observing physically and how it's being processed within yourself. What it means then as you understand, let's say, that artwork you're looking at. So I think the ruh, if I understand what Sheikh Mohammed was trying to have me understand that day, was that it is something which is allows you to extend the inherent physicality of yourself. That's the physiology, the biochemistry that was going on there. The ruh interacting with that relationship with the physical body, in this case the brain, allows them together, physically and then ruhi, to amplify or step out or amplify each other synergistically, so that there is a greater fullness of what the idea of consciousness is. That's how I'd understand it. Not that makes any sense, but that's how I would try to make you understand it. Of course, one could ask, and it's religion. Well, what about then if you take drugs or something which physiologically we know how they affect you biochemically, what's going on, and how then in that biochemical set of activities that person is experiencing altered states of consciousness or altered or experiences which are not normative when they're not there, like a hallucinogen, for example. So I think it's always much more complicated than what I'm saying, because I have to be honest about that, those possible objections, of what I was saying. I think if you want to. As a Western person, if you want to clinically, maybe like works of Carl Jung, he did a lot of work on, taking, psychology beyond just, biochemical processes to a transcendent psychology. There's a transcendent psychology. And so the idea of soul, because, if you're just a biochemical physiologist, there is no soul. It's like one of these zombie shows, it's like the brain, it's like just the brain, functioning, and then all you are is what's going on up here. And if you take, something and you negate that, then that is negating your personality, everything about you. You can function on a core level, but you don't have full self-awareness anymore. So. It's a hard thing, because what about a person in a coma? Is their soul? The ruh is there. We would assume it's there, but there is an impediment. It's captured with bars of physicality that don't allow it to be self-expressive anymore.
So the brain is kind of.
I think that this is an area, probably we need to have a lot more talk on. It's complicated. Anyway, anything else before we go? It's that cold in here, man.
Actually,
They got meat hanging up in here. What?
so I heard it downstairs.
I had a question. As far as it's kind of a confused question. I don't know if it has a simple answer, but as far as there's kind of a catch-22 I see when say a weak Muslim is trying to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the whole idea is that Allah is always there and answering us, and He comes close to us, but how does one kind of get over that fear that at this point in time our iman is good, but how will we keep remembering to make dua and even make dua that Allah keeps us remembering to make dua? Like, it's kind of something that I don't understand, and you can kind of live in fear that you'll be in this state right now, but you won't be able to emulate that. And I think that insecurity kind of, it gets you caught up a little bit.
That you may not, like you're having a good day today, but you may not have it tomorrow. Like,
Yes.
there's no, well,
Consistency.
like that, for example, maybe something like that you're asking
Yes.
about?
Yes, exactly.
Well, even I've mentioned, that even sin is a virtue for a believer, because sin is opportunity. It's opportunity to make tawbah and istighfar, for example. So you can acknowledge God in a negative scenario because it allows you to still engage with God in some type of engagement. So let's say, for example, you're doing something and you're forgetting a law, then the fact then that you catch yourself forgetting is an act of remembering, so there's a benefit in it. Sometimes you need these lows in your life in order to remember that you're on a plateau, generally. It's like, for example, in plant physiology, you grow a plant in a laboratory environment where it's got lights with no air current flow around it, no agitation, the plant will grow very straight. As soon as you take it out of that situation, you shake it, it collapses. Why? Because the plants physiologically need air current, they need physical agitation, mechanical stimuli, in order to develop a robust cellulose structure on the cellulose layering. In order to increase it, to make the plant sturdy, it needs mechanical disturbance, wind, rain, whatever, hitting them, right? So when a plant is grown in an environment where it doesn't get that, it grows, but it's weak, but it looks normal, but when you hit it, it collapses. So the same thing about you as a person. You need these, like, as musibat, for example, afflictions, in order to have strength. It's sort of like, sometimes you need these inoculations of a neutralized virus in order just to develop an antibody. The point is, you need these things in your life in order for strength, I think. For example, the Quran mentions, the idea that, the people who are given affliction, like in the jihad, it only increases them in iman. It wasn't a negative thing for them, right? For the Sahaba, for example, to experience these things, because it was increasing them. The hardships they went through increased them. So a hardship for you may be that you have a down, but as you're in a down, you catch yourself in a down, and you're able to think about, why am I down now? Why am I in a situation? And Allah actually would take you that way in order for you then to meditate. For example, you're here today, and maybe a process of your going through ups and downs is a part of Allah bringing you to get you through those ups, those downs, is to engage in a new activity that is going to then help you now to build up a higher level. And so you can benefit from that. Because sometimes you have to tear buildings down in order to build a new edifice. Even the Kaaba has to be torn down at times in order to rebuild it, to re-strengthen it. So sometimes these things have to happen in your life. And, if you don't, then... and you also fall complacent. People need to experience, divine anger in order to appreciate His mercy. Because if you're always in a state of mercy, you'll never know what anger is about, you'll take it for granted. It's like Iblis in the dua, in the hadith. Now he knows. Oh, whoa, ya wayla. Oh, woe is me. Now he knows, but it's too bad. That's a train that moved on. You're stuck there holding a ticket in your hand and it's gone.
So on that same token, is it ever too late?
Only if you're like Pharaoh. No, don't. Pharaoh denied until the end. You're not in that state, are you? you're not in the end, and you're constantly affirming. Though your affirmation may not be with a capital A, it doesn't. It's not. It's still part of your vocabulary. So don't. And I think the more, if you sit around and you reflect on Allah, and you sit down to spend time with yourself, being amazed by Allah, you can quickly, easily get out of this stuff. You know what I mean? You have to think about create. I go out and watch stars. Once a week, more than once a week, I'm on my yard and my driveway looking up. Always looking up. I'm always, why I am so interested in astronomy, because it just makes me like, wow. And then when I go like, wow, I think like, well, wow, look at me, little Naeem on this planet. And I take my wowness of my neutral, physics and my astronomy, which is so like atheistic, there's no God there kind of stuff. And I can mesh that with my belief of divine concern. It's like, wow. That's why I think ours is a century of scientific discovery that should make us go, wow, for God, with a bigger wow than the people of the past. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't do that, and it makes them go, there's no God. And it makes them lose faith. But I think for many of us, we live in a time when our faith can be so much greater than people in the past. But it's the problem that we also have greater distractions than people of the past too. I mean, if you were living in Istanbul or Baghdad, you didn't worry about going to the mall and seeing naked people and all that stimuli. Goats. What sounds do goats make? They
Bleat.
Huh?
Bleat.
They bleat, or horses neighing, or the occasional slave being beaten, whimpering. I'm astaghfirullah, but the thing, that point being, there are very few things that distracted you. Now you cannot but be constantly inundated with every type of distraction they're so elusive. They're so seductive that it's a difficult time. Okay, guys, we gotta go. I'm cold. I'm gonna catch a cold here. So anyway, announcement really quickly. So next week, I start that class.